Hello, Hey Boomer listeners. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host for Hey Boomer. And wherever you are joining us from, I hope you are having a lovely Monday and so glad to have you with us. In past Hey Boomer shows, we have spoken with many Alzheimer's and dementia care experts. You may remember that we spoke to Dr. Jason Karlowich from the University of Pennsylvania, and he talked to us about his book, The Problem of Alzheimer's. We spoke with Dr. Ann Basting from the University of Minneapolis, and she talked to us about creative care. We spoke with Kimberly Best from the Alzheimer's Association. Kimberly talked to us about all of the services that Alzheimer's offers, and we talked about the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is something that I do every year. And we, even in season 1, spoke to a very dear friend of mine, Kay Coughlin, who is a life coach for people that are serving as caregivers. Hey, Christina, good to see you. Hi, Ann, David, Gail. Nice to have everybody here. Today's show is going to be different, though. Those were all experts in various areas of caregiving. And my guest today, Joanne Ellis, is an author. She wrote Breathe Deeper. She was a caregiver to her husband, who recently passed away within the last 8 months. And she has a passion for helping others who are going through this caregiving journey and to share what she has learned as a caregiver, not as a medical expert. And I think you're going to find this story very revealing, very honest. I just love the conversations that I have had with Joanne so far. When you lose someone to dementia, you really don't get to have that closure that you hope for. You lose them a little bit at a time. And then in the end, you lose them more quickly. And that was Joanne's experience. And she writes about it in her book in a very honest, raw, compelling way. And she shares a lot of the stories that other caregivers in her support group also were going through. And so when you read the book, you'll see different perspectives on the way to handle something that has come up. Personally, I have not cared for someone with dementia. I helped with my father in his last few years of life, but he did not have dementia. And reading this book, I learned the good, the bad, and the ugly about dealing with somebody with dementia. And the beauty of this is that Joanne shares it with honesty and with humor. So I think it's just a very valuable read for anybody that is now caregiving or maybe making the journey back from caregiving. I'm excited to get into this with all of you. Before I get into my never too old stories, I wanted to put out to the audience that I work hard every week to try and find interesting stories about people that are continuing to live life, reinventing themselves, finding ways to be meaningful and fulfilled in this next chapter of our lives. And it got me to thinking, you all must know people like that. People that either are you or are friends of yours that are doing things that you did not do before, but that are really adding meaning to your life. So I would love it if you would share with me some of the information about some of these people. You can send it to me at wendy@heyboomer.biz. And I would be so happy to highlight one of your friends or you in one of the Never Too Old stories. And so with that, my first story. My first story is about a woman named Janet Ray Humphrey. And Janet walked into a yoga class at the age of 58 after a lifetime of medical issues, surgeries, fibromyalgia, and 3 neurosurgeries, followed by life-threatening infections, severe pain, muscular weakness, and scoliosis. Through her yoga practice, Janet grew stronger and more flexible, and her health improved dramatically. Yoga helped her resolve her fibromyalgia and complications from numerous surgeries and even improved her scoliosis. 7 years later, she trained to become a yoga teacher, and now at 75 years old, she has a website called agewithoutlimits.net, and she has written a book and offers classes to people from 50 to 100. So, way to go, Janet. My second story, in 1967, Catherine Switzer was the first woman to run as an officially registered runner in the Boston Marathon. The first woman, 1967. It created quite a stir. And in fact, an angry race manager tried to grab her bib number as she was running to stop her from competing. We've come a long way since then. Catherine is now 74, living in New Zealand, and leading a global nonprofit called 261 Fearless Incorporated. They use running as a vehicle to empower and unite women through the creation of local, non-competitive running clubs, educational programs, communication platforms, and social running events. They have these all over the world. These women in their 70s are leading the way for health and reminding us that we are never too old to do the things we want to do as long as we keep moving. Join me for a walkabout. If you're curious about that, check out the blog on check out the blog at heyboomer.biz. Before I bring Joanne on, though, I want to have you think for a moment. Do you know of someone who might be asking the question, how do I normalize the feelings of anger, loss, guilt, frustration, and helplessness when caregiving a dementia patient? If you do, take a minute right now to invite them to join the show or to listen later to the podcast. This is going to really help them feel better about how they're feeling. All right, with that, let's meet Joanne. Hi, Joanne.
Hey, Wendy.
So glad you were able to join us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. Let me tell them a little bit about you. So from early childhood, Joanne Ellis knew she wanted to be an artist. As a teenager, she sold posters to downtown stores and started earning commissions for portraits and landscapes. In between earning a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a Master of Arts, she worked in advertising agencies and various in-house art departments. Meanwhile, she raised 2, I'm sure, amazing sons with her first husband and assisted in his landscape design and contracting business. Then she had 8 wonderful years with her second husband, Robert Kenny. He called himself a lifelong gearhead. Bob was a top mechanic who worked night shifts for 40 years, enduring chronic sleep deprivation. They both shared a quiet pride that they'd left alcohol behind and were enjoying a new hope for their future together. Writing had been a private form of expression, and an escape for her throughout her life. It became her main refuge when her husband's memory began to deteriorate noticeably. So I want to start from there, Joanne. This was a new marriage. You all were just having a great time. When did you first start to notice things going awry?
The most conspicuous event was when we were traveling. This is someone who drove long distances as a form of relaxation. When he couldn't navigate anymore, he couldn't trust his own senses to decide whether this off ramp was the right one or not. And this was in areas where he'd lived the last 40 years as well, not just unfamiliar places, but everywhere. And that's when I knew his health was a lot better, but something was still going wrong.
Yeah. And so, did you say anything then? Did you go straight to a doctor at that point? What was the next step?
Bob was a very private, very reserved, very proud man. I chose my words very carefully. I inched up on it. I had tried to get him to go to the doctor just to make sure, because his father had died of Alzheimer's. So I knew he was worried about it. Just before he lost his job, we did manage to go get an evaluation for him. And the most direct response I ever got from him about the whole process at that point was after we were leaving the doctor's office. I said something that I thought was sort of positive or encouraging. I said, well, it's good to know what's going on, because then we have choices and we have options. And he just kept walking, and he said, I think we both know where I'm heading.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Yeah.
So you had experience already with some of this Alzheimer's journey through your parents. I don't know did you know Bob's father when he passed?
No, he had died a year before I met Bob, but he
Mm-hmm.
had a similar history to Bob, personal habits and all that sort of thing. Very kind of reserved individual. So not loads of social connections, I gathered. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there must have been this anxiety that came up in you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've seen this in my parents, and now this is kind of the path on my husband. So what did you do next?
Well, the night where I couldn't hope anymore, because he took fistfuls of vitamins every day. He was doing what he could do to offset it. The night when I knew it was going to take him was when he started getting up way earlier than his shift. And looking back now, I know it was because he needed a lot of time to figure out how to get to work. He never told me this. I understand it now. He gave himself hours to find his way to the place he worked for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was when plus he was turning the light on in our room while I was sleeping, and was talking to me like we were in the middle of a conversation, jarring me awake. And I knew, this is it. This is coming. So I started sleeping in the room over, and I started keeping a journal. And it occurred to me, I need somebody to talk to. I can't be alone with this. And I thought, well, the internet's sort of on around the clock. So I got online and found a support group. And that's when I started keeping a journal and staying with that support group. And they were a lifesaver. They still are.
Yeah, it sounds like from the book. So tell me, like you were journaling, but what inspired you to turn it into a book? What was your goal with that?
Anger. I just felt so cheated. Everything that I'd hoped for that we'd have. Bob and I had both just endured divorce. We were healing from that pain, and our relationship in good part was so robust because we both learned so much and made so many mistakes. And I had no idea that monogamy could be so much fun. I mean, I know what it is to be loved and cared for, but we were taking advantage of all the mistakes we'd made. And I looked forward to more of the same. We had more fun because we knew how to get our egos out of the way, just put them on the shelf and deal with the issue and keep it over there separate from us. So it was wonderful. And I was angry because I knew I was going to lose that. And I didn't know how long it would take, but I knew it was going away. And my attitude was pure defiance. Okay, if I can't have this, I'm making lemonades. I'm making lemonade out of these lemons. I'd had positive acknowledgement of my writing for a long time, and I had another manuscript I thought I'd publish someday. This was never the book I wanted to write, though.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
It's
but
never
I
the book
decided
anyone wants to write.
no. But I decided I'm getting something out of this. I can't hold down a job anymore because he needed some monitoring. He was still a safe driver, but he needed some monitoring. He couldn't pay bills, so I had to take over everything pretty quickly. And I just decided I'm going to have something to do when he's gone.
And we're going to talk about that because that's a big, important next step and a difficult one. I want to look at the cover of this book again, and it's hard to see. Maybe you can see a little bit over here. It looks like a footprint, and there's a lot of footprints on here. What's the symbolism of the footprints, Joanne?
That was a watercolor that I did after my older son and I were traveling in northern Morocco and southern Spain about 7 years ago now. Yeah. And I was impressed with the history I was learning about the hundreds of thousands, millions by now, of people who'd made that crossing over the Straits of Gibraltar and how their lives had changed between those two shorelines, culturally, everything. And the more I worked on my journal in this book, the more I thought, this is the art that's about what I'm going through, what we're all going through when we start this journey, that we're crossing to an unknown shore. And so the footprints are just about all the people coming and going back and forth, and that we are many. Also, you hear the word journey a lot when people talk about this passage that you go through as you watch someone you know or care about slowly go away. It is a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey. And there were so many feelings that came out in this book, anger and frustration and loss and guilt. And yeah, would you talk about some of that? Are you okay with talking about some of that?
Absolutely. I don't know if that ever entirely goes away. You lose someone. I don't know how one escapes the questions that you keep asking yourself. Could I have done that better? Could I have made any kind of a difference in how I handled it? And what I've discovered inevitably every time is you can do your best, and you're going to get tired, you're going to get drained, and you've got to step back and sharpen your own saw, as Stephen Covey would say, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People guy. If you don't stop and take care of yourself, you're going to have even more to regret because your temper starts to go, etc. But yeah, guilt. Could I have made it more comfortable for him? If there was nothing I could have done to change the outcome, could I have been in any way warmer, more affectionate, more supportive? Sure, no doubt.
Well, and like you said, you do the best you can. You have to go in with the person you are
Mm-hmm.
to this journey. You don't ask for this journey. And you talk about some people in the book who end up being caregivers for people they don't really like. Another really difficult situation.
Yes. One man in my support group, I looked forward to his post because even though I felt sorry for him for what he was going through, he'd had a very negative relationship with his father. But as things turned out, his other siblings, other family members, everybody just evaporated when his dad got dementia. And he was kind of stuck with him. And maybe if he had other financial options, maybe he would have put him in a memory care. I don't know. But he had the most wonderful, vicious sense of humor that we were all laughing and crying, and we knew it. We got it. I mean, he had a sense of responsibility. This is my father. He raised me. Maybe he was a jerk when I was growing up, but he gave me life and he raised me. And this is what I can do for him. I'm not going to pretend I enjoy it, or at least I'll put a smile on when I'm in the room with him. But when I get back into my room, I close the door and I'm back on the punching bag, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to find a way to get it out. And what about help, getting help at home? I mean, you said he was abandoned by his family. So how do you get help so you can hit the punching bag, so you can take a walk?
Oh, I should clear that. My husband, Bob, wasn't abandoned by his family.
No, you're the writer.
Yes, you're right. Yes, exactly him. Exactly him. Yeah. In my case, we're just spread out so geographically, so much geographically. One of his sisters was going to come and help me. She was going to spend 2 weeks here so I could get a break. And then COVID hit.
Uh-huh.
End of that. We couldn't do it. So anyway, yeah, for those of us like me, maybe don't have a corporate background or don't have much of a feel for institutional structure and vocabulary, getting on the phone with the VA. Bob was a veteran. They're great people. The County Council on Aging, the various agencies that you'll find in your county or your state, or federal organizations. It's quite a maze, and I found a lot of really great advice from my support group. I went to them. Some of them had worked in those institutions, and I said, here's the words you want to use. So once again, what I've learned, maybe the one part of the silver lining around this cloud for me has been learning the value of keep asking for help, keep asking questions. And I used to kind of give up when I got confused and overwhelmed. And now I know, don't give up. Make fun of yourself. I mean, I'm really comfortable with doing that now. I like to tell people on the other end of the phone, anybody else would have understood what you just told me. I just know that. Now, what if I was your eccentric aunt whom you can't take anywhere? What would you advise me to do? And it kind of loosens things up, and then they start telling you, wait a minute, I got somebody for you to talk to. So if you can kind of ease up and just stay humble and throw down and just say, I am clueless. What would you do? It tends to warm people up, and then they want to help you. That's my number one strategy when dealing with agencies and organizations.
And I think that's beautiful, because the truth is most of us are clueless. None of us ask for this, to be caregivers.
Yeah.
And most of us are clueless about what are the services available, how can we get the help that we need. And we have been taught, don't ask for help. I got this. I can do this.
Yeah.
Right?
I think our culture is pretty tough that way. We're a little too stiff upper lip, a little too solitary figure riding off into the sunset. And the ancient cultures know that we're here to help each other. I knew a Christian businessman a long time ago who said, and I like this, he said, if God didn't want us to help each other, he'd only put one of us here.
That old song, "No Man is an Island."
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So we alluded to this in the beginning. You had a career before the dementia,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly you had to cut back and then totally leave the work that you were doing. You were working mostly as a graphic artist then, is that right?
While Bob and I were together, I was manager of a paint department in a hardware shop.
So you were
Tools,
out of the house.
tools and materials. Yeah, that's the common denominator in my work. I was helping other people do their work with finishing and color matching and all this. So I left that behind, and then I was mostly doing my work at home. I had a wonderful year and a half of doing a blog, helping my older son with a blog, writing editorials for it and doing illustrations to accompany my editorials. That was kind of like dying and going to heaven for me. The one thing about writing and artwork is they're very solitary. They don't really cultivate your nurturing side. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. They're all about the creative side of your brain.
You're kind of deep into yourself.
Yeah. So talk to me about what that was like when you started to lose your identity, your professional identity, your identity as an artist, your identity as a writer, and that journey into the loneliness of all of that.
Well, I had adapted pretty well to just working freelance and working for myself. Our property needed quite a bit of improvement, and for me, I was really content in those days. We lived on the Ventura River bottom, which if you put a fork in the dirt, I like to say, you'll come up with rock. You'll come up with river rock. It's either pea gravel or boulders. But for me, this was heaven. So I was doing river rock hardscape all around our house and just enjoying myself immensely. And it got to where I realized Bob was doing so much, holding down a full-time job, working overtime every week because the money's better when it's overtime, unfortunately, and paying all the bills, and told me he was fine with it. He said, "Do what you love. I'm making enough money." And I took him up on that. But when I realized it was taking him 2 hours to pay the mortgage bill online, I thought, I can't ignore this anymore. And I told him, "Look, I can do this." And that was kind of sticking my neck out. I had to phrase it as carefully as I could to say that I couldn't say you need help. Just, hey, I've got a lot more spare time than you have. Why don't you let me do this? He actually thanked me after a few weeks. Yeah. So it was incremental. It was step by step. And the next level was I started being navigator when he drove. Yeah.
And then you get to a place in the book where you talk about it's not that you're not telling the truth, but you're changing it so that it doesn't upset them.
Oh, therapeutic fibbing.
There you go, therapeutic fibbing.
Yeah, therapeutic fibbing. That's possibly the one really fun aspect of the illness, and that sounds so cold and unfeeling, I'm sure. But when you're in this process, you better have fun somewhere. And since not telling the truth could save their life or yours, you learn with this illness that honesty, in this case, think again. It may not be the best policy, particularly when it comes to the fact that they can't remember when someone they love has died. And they'll ask you over and over again. My father did this. Where's my sister? And I made the mistake of telling him the truth back then. I didn't know. And the look on his face just hurt so bad. And I never did that again. I just said, oh yeah, they're down in Arizona. They're going to call soon. You know,
Oh.
uh,
And the
what I
soon
told
they
them,
don't remember, right?
they forget and they'll ask you again. Yeah, I think she's on her way home now. Um, what I tell people in the book is let them live, let their loved one live for them.
Mm.
That's a big one. Another one is hallucinations. I had some events in my childhood. I had some head traumas and had visual, auditory, and tactile hallucinations where you feel something that is not there. And in my case, it felt like animals.
Hmm.
Visual, auditory. At one point, it felt like when I was a teenager, it was like I had 3 talk radio stations playing in my head at one time. It's and I never thought I'd be grateful for that. But now when I read about people with their hallucinations from dementia, I get it. It's totally real to them. They're not trying to be difficult. It's absolutely convincing. So yeah, it was wonderful to find out the best thing you can do is just go with them, accommodate. Yeah, we're going to get rid of that statue. She's rude when she stares like that. Or, with my mom, it was people on the ceiling. They wouldn't leave her alone. I said, you know what, Mom? I'm going to go give them a piece of my mind. And in the meantime, I'll get you a cup of tea, sort of distract. And then I'd yell at the ceiling. And that would kind of calm her down. So, yeah.
So you got to use the creative side of your brain for some of that. But...
Oh, you got to see what's in the book for some of the other stuff, like the 22 rabbis in this woman's house.
That's what I meant when I said you share some humor along with the honesty and the rawness in this book, and you have found ways to be able to laugh in spite of all of the hardships. And that's a gift.
It's a relief. It really is. Most of the time when you have something to laugh about, you'll wait until you're out of your loved one's presence because it might not be something they can enjoy.
Mm.
But if they're laughing with you, even better.
Yeah.
Even better. I think there's a quote in the book like, a woman with dementia said to her caregiver, oh, that doesn't ring a bell with me, but then my bells don't ring anymore. They both laughed, how can you not, Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here we are, Joanne, about 8 months since Bob passed.
Yep.
And you are understandably still grieving and will for a while. And you've got your book out, but because of COVID, you haven't really been able to get out and do much with the book. So what are you doing to try and, find your way back, to find your identity again, to love Joanne again, to rebuild your life?
Well, I have, I think, in some ways, better luck than a lot of people. I brought Bob here home to my family home the last 3 years. And now that our parents are gone, it's just my brother and I. And my brother was sole caregiver to both our parents for most of 20 years, dementia and everything else, everything my mother was enduring. And this place, when you're a full-time caregiver, there's a lot of other stuff you just don't have the time or energy to do. So this place needs work. And there's land that could use some help too. It's a lot warmer and drier here now. So I've been learning permaculture from my older son. And I'm excited about the changes we're making to bring the water table back up. I'm excited to help the land heal. And so that helps me heal. Plus, that involves working with stone again and creating retaining walls and berms to hold water back. So that way I get to design and build, and I get to help the land heal. And as I say, that helps me heal again too a little bit. With COVID and all, my brother and I are both talking about how are we going to form more social connections. Where we are, there's COVID has really Omicron, the variants, all of them. They've come through and they've ravaged the place. There's vaccinations are um, very much debated here.
You're in Oregon, right?
Yes, it's technically a blue state, but it's really a red state with big islands of blue in it. I'm a speck in a red pond where I am. But so you make your decisions carefully about how to meet people. I've joined a local hiking club. I've joined a local dance club. They do require us to mask up when we're dancing indoors. So trying to get social connections back. I think that's maybe the hardest, the most debilitating thing about this illness, taking care of someone with it, or care partnering, as Teepa Snow says, to give them, to acknowledge that they're still trying to live independently as much as they can. I think the isolation that the illness imposes on the caregiver is maybe the hardest part, because as your loved one's faculties decline, other people become unfamiliar and even menacing. And they're self-conscious that they maybe can't hold up a conversation anymore. They're
Yeah.
they're not comfortable with that. Having other people around reminds them that they can't really participate so much anymore. So they'd rather other people weren't around. Even if they want to go out and go places, they get to where they can become even a little argumentative or combative with other people. They become defensive. And so you find yourselves together evolving to the point where it's just easier to stay home
Yeah.
all the time. And the loneliness, it's already hard with dementia. Now you put a pandemic on top of it, and you start getting really inventive about how to get with people. This is where the internet is a godsend.
Yeah. What would you have done without your support group online?
I'm not sure I like to think about that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Th
know. We
They
were
were
all
really your lifeline, weren't they?
Yeah, the group I joined, the philosophy was we are not here to be polite. We're here to feel safe to say anything we want because we all know what we're going through, and that's exactly how it was. Um, with my book, I wanted to take it a step beyond that because I thought these people are doing a great job. They're helping me feel like I'm an okay human being, even with all the anger, the resentment, the guilt, everything. I'm a reasonable human being because I care and I'm still trying.
Right.
So I wanted to take it a step over with my book and now with my Facebook group to say, let's pay attention to us every chance we get. Because the scary thing is that dementia caregivers tend to get sick and die faster than their charges because the illness is so compelling. You just feel obliged to spoon some more vegetables into them or try to get them to brush their teeth and forget that when you go to bed at night, you're so tired you don't brush your own teeth.
Mm.
Something's wrong with that picture. The illness is taking out two people, not one.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me show them your Facebook group. It's called Breathe Deeper, Dementia Caregiver. And I have joined this group and really appreciate some of the comments that not only Joanne shares, but other people in the group. And yeah, it's about dementia caregiving, but it also is just about being human and normalizing some of these feelings. So check it out, Breathe Deeper, Dementia Caregiver. There also is a website for the book, breathedeeperbook.com. And you can order the book there, or you can order it from Amazon or I guess, another favorite bookstore. And finally, if you have other questions that we didn't get to today, feel free to email Joanne at breathedeeperbook@Joanne Ellis. It's ELLIS, JoanneEllis.com. Joanne, I am so grateful that you had the courage to come on today in spite of all of the feelings that you are still experiencing. So I have one more question for you. Hey Boomer is about encouraging people to live life to the fullest. And you are now just coming out of an experience that limited that, but now stepping back into it. And also, we talked about normalizing feelings. So I'm wondering if there's one or two, even three takeaways you'd like to leave with the audience today.
One really important message I would have is, in the process of taking care of someone, helping someone take care of themselves who has this illness, it's really easy to think, oh wow, I'm losing too much weight. I'm putting on too much weight. Gosh, I'm smoking more than ever now. I got to handle that. I got to do something about that. I really should look into that. I want to urge anyone in this process, or who sees this process coming towards them, or that they're at risk, or they're going to help a loved one, they want to give a loved one a break who's a caregiver, don't put it off. Don't wait. Shove everything aside for 5 minutes every day, 30-second increments here and there, wherever you can, and do for you. It's the one really good decision I made in this process. 2 years ago, I started studying with a friend of my son's who is a yoga teacher and a practitioner of yoga and flow arts. And Jessie has helped me get through this. I mean, you mentioned someone who's transformed her life with yoga. I made a decision. I'm not going to wait until I have all this time to myself. I'm going to incorporate it now. And it actually made the journey a little less painful for me, because as everyone knows, you have this dropped in your lap. You got your own stuff going on. I mean, with me, it's arthritis. It's all that. I don't even feel the arthritis anymore, because I decided, no, now when he sleeps, when he's doing laps around the yard, I'm doing stretches and poses. So that's a big one.
Good for you. So self-care is not selfish.
It actually helps you take better care of the person you love. My brother is an excellent example of this, because the whole time he was taking care of our parents, he made time for his men's book group and his motorcycle.
Oh, good for him.
Absolutely. He's been my number one role model in this way.
Yay for your brother.
Absolutely.
Tell him we said hi.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much, Joanne, once again. And I want to just let everybody know who's coming up next week. Next week, we're talking to a man named Dr. Bob Saul. And Bob was a general pediatrician and medical geneticist. His love and commitment for children began early in his life when he and his wife fostered children with disabilities. And then he went to medical school, became a pediatrician and a geneticist, and was working both jobs, 12 to 14 hours a day. And when he was around 63 and ready to retire, he said, you know what, I'm not ready to retire. And so he took a job as the medical director of general pediatrics at Prisma Health Upstate and Prisma Health Children's Hospital. But in 2020, he finally decided, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to retire, but not retire. Bob is an extraordinary advocate for children. That has been his life's passion. And so he has a website called My Children's Children. He's written some books. He writes columns in the newspaper. And his passion for children and helping parents be the best parents they can be will come through in this discussion. So please look forward to joining us next week to hear Dr. Bob Saul. And finally, I just want to remind you all a couple of things. One more, couple, not just one, a couple of things. If you like what we're doing on Hey Boomer, please support us. I have this Buy Me a Cup of Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/heyboomer0413, where you can do anything from $5 to $75 to help support all of the work and time that goes into creating Hey Boomer. It is a creative endeavor of love, and any support you can give me is greatly appreciated. And then finally, I do also have a Facebook group called Hey Boomer, What's Next? And if you'd like to be invited into that group, just drop me an email at wendy@heyboomer.biz, and I will send you an invite. So thank you all for tuning in today. Thanks again, Joanne. I look forward to hoping that this book helps a lot of people. I think it was really, really well done.
Thank you, Wendy. Me too.
And so, boomers, live with passion, live with relevance, live with courage, and remember, you are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.